All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. Saudi Arabia's claimed oil reserves for the first time in 30, 35 years since they first suddenly upped their reserves from 100 and whatever up to 262 billion barrels. And I've insisted since then that the reserves have stayed at exactly 262 billion barrels and never changed. Well, for the first time since then, their reserves have been admitted to actually be lower, publicly admitted. Granted, not realistically, but they have now been quote unquote reassessed and have been pegged at only 247 billion barrels instead of 262. Now, of course, in reality, as many of you are probably already aware, their actual remaining amount is decently lower than that. It is below 200 billion. It's down in the upper 100s somewhere. As you can see by this remaining oil reserves declination chart, this is just a rough estimate. Their initial amount of oil that they had that was recoverable when everything began was probably in the upper 300s, somewhere near 400, but not quite 400. And accounting for all of the production since then, their reserves have declined over time, and by now should be down to the upper 100s, 190s, 180s, getting very close to the halfway points of depletion or so, which is around when plateau capabilities collapse. In more recent times, in the 21st century, they were holding a plateau of around 10 million barrels per day. However, since the very late 2010s and now through the 2020s, they, as the primary member in control of OPEC, basically have had OPEC in a series of effectively permanent production cuts, which give them a public excuse to go back down to only pumping about 9 million barrels per day, but is most likely to psychologically condition the world to getting used to seeing Saudi Arabia at, lower numbers than 10 million barrels per day, gradually stepping it down while giving a excuse as to why they're doing so that they can try for as long as possible to conceal the fact that they've passed the end of their oil reserves capability to maintain a 10 million barrel per day plateau. Although there would never be any specific exact point, but the most likely point from which they would definitively not be able to maintain 10 million barrels per day consistently ever again afterwards is most likely around the very early 2030s, like 2031 or 2032, and they've begun preemptively stair stepping down to lower plateaus ahead of time, again, using the production cuts excuse so that it won't be seen, at least initially, as them actually reaching some decline in their capability, which would be a bit chaotic for the oil market and also damaging to their national image, their reputation, since the whole unrealistic perception everyone has of them having infinite oil is a big part of what gives them a lot of their geopolitical power. So, as I've said before, that's the whole reason for the whole permanent OPEC production cuts. So, anyways, Saudi Arabia, most likely remaining amount of oil is probably in the 190s, maybe 180s in terms of billion barrels, as opposed to their supposed downgrade of 247 billion barrels. And that will be it for this one. So thank you everybody for sticking around and listening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. PayPal and Patreon are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. There's a link in the description to a free to access Google Drive with docs containing all kinds of graphs, charts, data compilations, data, everything. The link to my catch channel is in the top pinned comment as well. May God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.